What is up, guys? Welcome to the Dynasty Fan Podcast. We got a good show for you today. Going to be talking about our favorites, really our top three at each position, our top three waiver wire pickups for Week 4. So, what's up, Ryan? How you doing?
Doing well, man. Ready to talk some waiver wire ads. There's some juicy options on the waiver wire and for week 4.
Yep. All right, so let's get into it. So we'll start off slow. Going to start off with the tight ends, but there was still some good performances and really some repeat performances. So first one for our tight ends, we just got two for this position. We got Njoku and Conklin. So David Njoku with a huge game this past week. So week 3 comes out 10 targets, right? 9 receptions, 89 yards, and a touchdown. So just a huge game for Njoku. We've really been waiting for Njoku to just do good for years already, right? He's an athletic freak, right? His athletic profile is just ridiculous. So really, that's what you want in a tight end: big, athletic, decent hands, right? So finally, we get to see Njoku unleashed, right? 9 for 89 and a touchdown. So definitely somebody if you need a tight end, right? Kind of might be more boom bust than we think. I prefer Conklin personally, right? Conklin maybe not gonna explode like this, but Conklin's gonna be steady, man. Conklin had 7 targets, 9 targets, 8 targets. So it seems like the floor is just better for Conklin. So, just depending on what you want on your roster, if you want maybe like a boom bust guy as a second option, right? But I think a more steady option right now is Conklin. I think it was tight end 3 on the season so far. So this past week, Conklin was 8 for 84. So I definitely prefer Conklin to Njoku, but Njoku, man, if he keeps anything close to that up, right? If that's a glimpse of what we're gonna see until Deshaun comes back, it's definitely gonna be interesting. So what do you think about these two guys, right?
Well, we know that tight end is such a tough position, for fantasy. If you don't have one of those top guys, it can be a real headache. So I think these are two viable options. Somebody asked me on the live stream we had on TikTok on Sunday, and I said, he said, how much should I bid on Njoku? I'm desperate at tight end. And I told him, I was like, well, I mean, I would put a bid on Njoku, but also put a bid on Conklin. And I'm kind of with you. I think for a redraft, I think I'd rather have Conklin. I think he's been more consistent. He's getting
Yeah.
more targets every week. And so I just kind of would prefer Conklin, I think. But like I said, I wouldn't fault you for trying to get Njoku and maybe streaming a tight end week to week. And that seems to be, that might be the way to go.
Yeah, some people like to do that. I don't really like streaming tight ends. If you are going to do it though, you pretty much you can pick up two at the end, right? Two at the end of your draft. Some people like to do that, or just switch one out week to week. But Conklin definitely, man, definitely looks like steady option right now with Flacco. Been getting some targets. So let's transition into QBs. We only got one QB because if you got this guy, he's probably on your waiver wire, right? One QB leagues. So T Law, man, Trevor Lawrence, it's so good to see him have himself a game. I think it was 262 yards, 3 touchdowns. Think that's what it was. It was 25 fantasy points. So definitely good. He's got some weapons now, right? For the most part. Christian Kirk's look good. Zay Jones looks good, who we're gonna mention later. Right? We got James Robinson. He's got ETN. So he's definitely got some weapons, man. And it seems like what they surrounded with is finally clicking. Seems like that offense is clicking. And they played the Chargers, man. So Chargers are a good team, and they put up some numbers against the Chargers. So they take down the Chargers week 3. So definitely, if T Law is on your waiver wire, which he probably is in your one QB leagues, I wouldn't mind if I lost Trey Lance or you have Dak, right? If you're in need of a quarterback, I definitely don't. Or if you had Wentz, right, and you're believing Wentz was going to keep this up, I'm definitely going to be spending some money on T Law.
Yeah, it's nice to see, man. He's such a likable guy. And coming out of college, he was, one of the highest rated prospects for fantasy in dynasties. And he really struggled year one with the Jaguars. I mean, we can say, maybe that was the coaching staff partially. Maybe it was just a lack of talent or weapons around him. But, he's really bought into, what Doug Peterson is doing. And Doug Peterson and T Law. They just seem to be a good fit, at least so far. And like you said, Christian Kirk, that was a great signing by them, even though some of us were scratching our heads at the time. He's looked amazing. And like you said, Zay Jones has come in and been a respectable wide receiver too. They have two great young RBs. So, I mean, he definitely has a lot of weapons around him.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and we'll get into our wide receivers. There's definitely a lot of good wide receivers, man. When you looked like to narrow it down to three was tough. So we will give you some honorable mentions. We'll probably give you our reasons as to why some of these guys are not on the list on our top three. But I guess we can go into it now. A couple of honorable mentions. Obviously, Dortch, man, Greg Dortch, 9 for 80, another big game for Dortch. And the reason with him is that the guys that we have on this list are guys that we think can kind of sustain some of their production, right? So Greg Dortch, 9 for 80, but Rondell Moore has been creeping to come in, right? Sooner or later, then you're still gonna have D Hop come back. So that's the reason that Greg Dortch, but he's definitely, man, if you want to put Greg Dortch on here and you want to go after Dortch, I definitely don't mind it. Don't blame you. I don't fault you. And the other guy that I think is worth mentioning, obviously Isaiah McKenzie, KJ Osborne, but you're not going to see with Osborne, you're not going to see what you saw out of JJ, right? So that's the only thing about Osborne. Obviously, McKenzie looked great. McKenzie could be on here. He's been turning heads in preseason, right? But he's still kind of split in that role. So 7 for 76 and a touchdown, though, definitely is solid. The last honorable mention guy is a long forgotten name, Traquan Smith. Blast from the past. Traquan Smith 4 for 105. So he didn't even play the full game. 4 for 105. He is in concussion protocol, so monitor that. But I think if you miss out on some of these guys, I don't mind getting Traquan Smith. Michael Thomas is dealing with some a foot injury again. That does not sound good at all to me. I'm worried. I have Michael Thomas in Dynasty. I have him in a redraft. I'm definitely concerned for the long term outlook of the season for Michael Thomas, man. So Traquan Smith, I think, is someone that if he can sneak into that role, obviously Jarvis Landry is injured as well. I'm not sure the extent of Jarvis Landry's injury, but I'm not liking the sound of Michael Thomas having a foot injury. Right, he's dealt with foot lower leg injuries for 2 years, had surgeries. So I'm not liking that. So I think Traquan Smith is a solid little flyer as well. Sneaky little ad this week on the waiver wire. So
Yeah,
let's get into our number three. Did you want to talk about any of those, Ryan?
well, I like Dortch, man. I think Dortch is somebody that we can roster because, he's attached to Kyler Murray, and Rondo Moore is just, he didn't really do much last year,
Yeah,
and so I'll say that I would definitely put a little bit of fab on Dortch. If I missed out on some of those top guys that kind of were ranking above him, I would be okay with just placing a smaller bid on Dortch. If I need somebody to start because he's getting playing time, man. He's getting close to 90% of the snaps, and he's also getting targets.
targets, man,
So, I
and
mean,
targets
he's got
especially.
Kyler, so I like Dortch out of those guys that we
Me too.
talked about. And I'll just say really quick, the rookie wide receivers guys, we're not talking about them because they're rostered in all the leagues that we play in. So yes,
Lower
obviously
roster.
if Olave is out there, get him. Garrett Wilson, go get him. But I mean, those guys should be rostered.
Um,
So that's why we're not talking about them.
yeah. All right. So our wide receiver three, right, is going to be Zay Jones. So you go ahead and lead us off with Zay Jones, right?
Well, he's the wide receiver two on a great team. I mean, the Jaguars are playing great. You know what I mean? He's got Trevor Lawrence. In week one, he saw 83% of the snap share, had 9 targets, put up 12 points. Week two was okay, only 4 targets, only 5 points. But last yesterday, he had 11 targets, 10 receptions, and a touchdown. So I think that he's somebody that he's wide receiver, I believe 24 right now on the year. So he's a firm low end wide receiver too. So he's somebody that definitely needs to be rostered moving forward. Um, I'm comfortable dropping some of those flyer guys or those um, maybe some of those RB handcuffs if we really need a, wide receiver at this point. I really like Zay Jones.
Yeah, and they really, I mean, if you're getting Zay Jones, it's because really you believe in Trevor Lawrence. right? So if you think Trevor Lawrence is going to keep this up, Jack's going to keep this up, he's going to continue to just improve, right? Because he can get better as the season goes on, right? So I definitely don't mind tying, one of these pass catchers up, tying one of T Law's pass catchers up. So definitely I like Zay Jones. Let's go into our number two. This guy just a monster week. I think he just has to be on this list. So our wide receiver two, Mac Hollins. So this past week, Mac Hollins would just explodes, man. I think it was 154, 158 yards, 8 for 158 and a touchdown. So just a huge week. I mean, you cannot be on the waiver list if you do something like that. And I know Renfro was out, but still, man, you haven't seen this stat line from Renfro. So this has to earn him some more opportunity. And really, he's been getting some snaps, right? He's been getting a pretty decent amount of snap share. I think he was like at 80% like the first two games. I think he tied Devontae Adams in targets this game with 10. So Matt Collins just a huge game. I mean, you got to be talented to do that. 8 for 158 and a touchdown. It was 30 fantasy points, 29.96. So Matt Collins is going to be our number two ad for wide receivers.
Yeah, man. I'm not sure about Mac Hollins yet. I'm definitely fine with people trying to acquire him. I'm gonna definitely throw out some bids, but like I said, there's a lot of good options, man, on the waiver this week. So I would just caution people to spend like we don't spend too much trying to get Mac Hollins. I mean, I'd be perfectly fine with putting smaller bids and getting a guy like Zay Jones or Greg Dortch for these next 3 or 4 weeks. Um,
$100 budget.
just
I mean, like maybe like, you know, $7 on your top guy. And then you could do like a bunch of $3 bids on these guys, or even maybe one or two, right?
yeah,
Put in for all these guys. We talked about McKenzie, Osborne. You can even add those guys to the list. And really you'll be fine with any of them. But yeah, that's definitely the strategy that I usually like to do, especially if there's kind of like all like I don't want it's kind of hard to say tiered, but it's almost like a tier of receivers, right? Really. So I definitely don't mind putting low bids on a few of these guys. So we'll go into our number one. And this player, man, I'm glad for this player. I'm glad more so because we had him as our wide receiver stash. So Romeo Dobbs, man, comes out. We heard he was going to get an increase in opportunity. Christian Watson, I know a lot of people had high hopes for him, but he just has not been able to stay healthy. Like in training camp, he missed in and out of training camp. He's missed a lot of practice. He missed practice this week. So he's out. Now we have Watkins, Sammy Watkins, returning to the IR. Right? Shocking turn of events by Sammy. And then so now you have just Christian Watson. Now he's out this week. So Dobbs just continued to take advantage of his opportunity in preseason, in training camp. We heard a lot of good things about Dobbs. So now he gets his opportunity. He goes out there, a perfect 8 for 8, man. 8 for 8, 73 yards and a touchdown, 21 fantasy points. And I think just really, if you go 8 for 8, you're going to earn the respect of Aaron Rodgers. So I like Dobbs going forward. I like the opportunity. I like that they targeted him a lot. I like that he was on the field with Lazard and still did this, right? So it's not like he was out there with the reserves. He went out there with pretty much everybody there except Sammy, right? I guess Christian Watson's not there, but it just seems like he's just earning the respect, earning the trust of the coaching staff. You heard a lot of positive stuff all training camp. Then even you heard LaFleur saying he wanted to get him involved, and they did. 8 for 8, 73 yards and a touchdown. So I like Dobbs. I think he could be the wide receiver one for the rest of the season in Green Bay. So I'm definitely going to be spending some money on Dobbs.
yeah, I agree, man. He's the one wide receiver that I would probably pay up for, especially if I'm 0-3 or 1-2 and I'm needing a flex play or I'm, maybe RB heavy, but my wide receivers, if I have Darnell Mooney, right? And I'm sitting there staring at Darnell Mooney, I'm perfectly fine dropping Darnell Mooney and getting Romeo Dobbs for the rest of the season. Totally out on a guy like Mooney. Like you said, he's just has such a tremendous opportunity in front of him, tied to Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers has shown when you earn his trust, he's gonna feed you the ball. And so hopefully it looked like a step in that direction because they had a tough game. It was a tough matchup, and he produced, man.
Yep. So we'll head into our RBs, our top three RBs. So at RB3, a familiar name, but JD McKissick, right? So now JD McKissick, he's really just getting the same that same role that he gets, right? And he was like, I think it was like an RB2, right, at some points in the season last season. So just 7 targets last week, 9 targets this week. 9 targets, man, that's pretty good. And Gibson's target share has gone down. Gibson 4 targets last week, only 1 target this week. So it seems like McKissick has just taken that role, that receiving role again from Antonio Gibson, right? Getting a majority of those receptions now. And I think even like with he got 3 carries, but I think even with Brian Robinson back, I think that his role here is going to be pretty safe. I think B Rob might get some goal line work, maybe some in between the 20s work, but it just seems they just like McKissick in this role. So I just think he's a solid little floor play. If you want a little flex play for some of those bye weeks, someone that's going to get you maybe 10 points, you're not going to worry about it. You're in an easy matchup, right? I like JD McKissick just with these targets that he's getting as a flex play in a pinch or during some bye weeks.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I think the big thing about McKissick is you could probably get him for like zero. If you're allowed to bid zero, you could probably get him for zero or a dollar if you have to bet a
Might be a
dollar.
our guy.
Yeah, so he's definitely somebody that you can acquire, and like you said, I think it's also going to be dependent on game script. If you think the Commanders are going to be down in the game, which they were this past week to the Eagles, he's going to be in the game. He's going to be in there because he's just a good pass catcher. That's why they wanted him back. I mean, Buffalo actually was already basically, we had gotten reports that Buffalo had made an offer and he was going to sign with Buffalo. And then all of a sudden, last minute, Washington came back and I guess gave him a better offer, and he decided to stay in Washington. So they obviously like him a lot. So
Yeah.
they're going to use him in that third down role. And when they go into that 2 minute no huddle offense or they're behind, they're definitely going to use him.
Yep. So we're gonna go into our number two, and really this guy could be one when I'm thinking about it and breaking it down. But Jamal Williams, just a huge game, big opportunity now. It sounds like they're saying Swift might be out till after the bye. So after basically week 6, right? Till week 6. So these next 2 games, we might have the Jamal Williams show. 24 fantasy points this past week. And what I think about Jamal is really his value when right now, obviously skyrocketing. Gonna have 2 big weeks. Great opportunity, right, with the Lions offense that looks good so far. As well as when Swift comes back, they still give him work. Like he still gets goal line work, just weirdly and frustratingly enough. He still gets goal line work. So I think even when he comes back, even when Swift comes back, I mean, if you spend some money on Jamal Williams, he still holds some value on your roster, right? So he could, now that I'm thinking about it, he could be number one. I do like the number one guy also, but Jamal Williams just solid little pickup this week.
Yeah, for sure, man. He's somebody that's going to produce as he's going to be a top five, top six running back. Like right now, he's RB6 on the year with, and that's with DeAndre Swift playing. So I
Yeah,
think that without Swift the next couple of weeks, I mean, he's got favorable matchups. Well, at least in week 4, he plays Seattle. Week 5, New England. You're right. New England sometimes can give running backs fits. But if you need a running back for sure, week 4, he's definitely a guy that you can play, and he'll get you top 10 results, I think.
yeah. So heading into our number one, we have Khalil Herbert. So why don't you lead us off about Khalil, right?
Well, Khalil Herbert, man, we heard rumblings in the offseason and even early on into this season that the coaching staff really loves Khalil Herbert. There was even some people saying that for the system, they like Khalil Herbert better as a better fit than Montgomery.
Yeah.
And so the first couple of weeks, he didn't really get a lot of snap percentage, 20, 30%. But with the injury to Montgomery, he came in and he shined. He's the
Well,
RB1 on the week with 30.9 fantasy points. He had, let me see here, I think he had 157 rushing yards, 20 attempts, a couple of targets in the passing game, but that's not really what the Bears do. They don't pass much. So, and 2 TDs. And so with David Montgomery, missing the next couple games, we don't really know how much yet. I mean, Khalil Herbert, he's definitely the guy that you want to add if you need a running back for the next 3 to 4 weeks. And
Mhm.
if he does well, which I anticipate he will, there's, I don't want to say there's no guarantee that Monty will get the job back, but it's not going to be, I'm just not playing anymore. If he's doing well, he's going to get a 50-50 split. It's going to become more of a timeshare, I guess I'm trying to say. So he's
Yeah.
somebody that I'm definitely willing to spend if I need a RB. If I'm, 1-2, 0-3, now's the time to get Khalil Herbert. Put him in your lineup as a running back or as a flex. He's going to produce.
Yeah, I definitely like the thought process there. As man, if he 157 yards, 2 touchdowns, dude, like that's a monster game, almost 8 yards per carry. So 30 points, man. So what you're saying is true. If he's playing like this, man, he might hold off. He might hold off Montgomery. And then Montgomery, I heard knee, and then I even heard it possibly could be a high ankle sprain. I'm not sure how true that is, but he might be out longer than we think. I know Swift's only going to miss 2 games, right? So, but Montgomery could be out like 4 to 6. We don't know if it's a high ankle sprain. Those take a while, so you just don't know. I haven't heard any updates on it, but still, you just like the opportunity that Khalil Herbert's going to have, and this dude's going to be basically. I mean, he's a top 10 RB, right?
Yep.
The Bears, they it's like all they do is run the ball, right? Right now, they're not going to pass. They're still going to rely heavily on the run. So you gotta like the opportunity of Khalil Herbert, and we've seen him be right, put up RB1 numbers last year when he got the role. So I like Khalil Herbert. I'm definitely gonna be actually have him stashed. He was one of my favorite stashes before the season started. So I got him in a lot of drafts. He went late in drafts. He was going so late in drafts, behind all those top handcuffs like Madison and all those guys. And he's definitely one of was should have been one of the top handcuffs. So I'm glad to have him. I think I have him in the 10 teamer, right?
Yeah,
So
you
I don't know
do. I'll be
if
sending some offers.
I got him,
Yeah,
but
I'll be
definitely gonna
sending
be a
some
top
offers.
favorite at this week, man. He's probably the number one. Him and Dobbs, they're the number one.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say he's probably number one just because it's harder to find running backs that can really help you and then have a window of sustainability, right? We saw that last year with Elijah Mitchell, but it doesn't happen often where a running back comes in and has helps you and produces, but also has a big window to sustain it throughout the season. And so he's somebody that really can, I think. And like you mentioned it, Justin Fields, I don't know what it is, man, with the Bears, but they just don't trust him. It's like he has training wheels on when he's playing. They don't want him to throw the ball downfield. So they're down big to the Packers, and they're still running the ball. It's like, okay,
Well, all right, guys, that is all we have for you today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe. Check out some of our other videos. And until next time, we'll see you guys later.
later, guys. Good luck.